When we analyze our clients' traffic, we can see that for the last year, there's been a 12% decline in traffic from Google, and also an 11% decline in click-through rate. This might not seem like a lot, but it's actually a big deal. And this is also a hint on an ongoing change in search behavior. An ongoing change that will affect both how your users find information about your organizations, but also how you must act to stay relevant in this new AI-driven search era.
We are from Tieto, and thank you for listening here to our open session today. My name is Cecilia Wirtl, and this is my colleague Henrik Hallenius, and we are both digital strategists focusing on web. And we work with a broad range of clients, from public sector doing websites, both internal and external, to the private market, business-to-business e-commerce solution, for example. And why are we here today? Well, the both of us have 20 years of experience working with digital communication. And we have seen a change in the last year with LLMs and wanted to understand what is happening here. And what we found mostly have to do with how you work with your content. And just to be clear here, we are not content specialists. We do web. But as LLM move into our space, we want to understand why and what's happening to be able to advise our clients in the future. So we did our research, we dive into client data, and what we found we are going to share with you here today.
So before we get any further, just a quick note here on terminology. So we're going to say a lot of AI and a lot of LLM. And what we mean when we say those terms is actually these players: Copilot, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and so on. So we're not speaking about AI generally, it's the LLMs that is the topic for the day. Okay, so these changes that we were talking about, what are they actually? Well, for one thing, there was a report from Svenskarna och Internet that came out last year. In that report, they said that 40% of the Swedish population is now using AI to search for information. 40%, and that's probably even more today. And of those 40%, about half of them actually said that they preferred using AI rather than Googling. So that's also behavior change that we need to acknowledge. And we can also see that there's a shift from humans to machines. During 2024, we actually saw that the number of bots outnumbered the humans on internet traffic. So nowadays, there are more bots than humans on the internet, and this is probably due to the vast expansion of AI. We also can see a move from browsing to answers. And what we mean by that is users don't really enjoy clicking those links in those search result page anymore, trying to browse the information, not finding exactly what they were looking for, poker sticking back to the search result page, trying another link. That's not what they prefer. They want those answers instantly in the LLM user interface, and they want to stay there and get those answers instantly. We can also see that there's a shift from brand control visibility to ecosystem control visibility. So what do we mean by this? Well, in the past, we had almost everything, all our content on our own websites. And that was more or less the place where our users also went. That's not the case anymore. AI fetches information from various sources all over the internet. It might not be your website that they've actually present information from in their answers. So your website is just one part of the ecosystem nowadays. And there are other platforms, other sources that are just as likely to actually get cited in those AI answers as your website is. And last but not least, we see a move from keywords to conversations. And there's actually two parts of this. So first of all, from the user's perspective, we see that in the past, users tended to Google for a few keywords, try to compromise as much as they could when they're doing their searches. But nowadays, we see that more and more people actually write full sentences or full questions, initiating a conversation rather than just searching for keywords. And then there's the aspect from us as site owners as well. So in the past, during traditional SEO, a lot of focus were on the keywords, trying to find out which keywords our users were using when Googling, and then trying to match those keywords in our own content on our own website to be able to rank as good as possible in Google's search result page. So, this is not the case anymore. When AI has become better actually at understanding semantics, they also understand what you actually are asking about, even though you might not use the correct keywords or the correct phrasing. They understand it anyway, and they give you a proper answer, even though you might not use those keywords. So that's also a big change. And as we started with here, we can see a decline in traffic from Google. So we did an aggregated research of our own clients at Tieto. So we looked at 35 websites from different industries. We analyzed more than 370 million impressions and more than 15 million clicks. And over the year, we can see that a lot has happened here. And what's good to know, here, May 2025, that's where when Google rolled out the AI overview in Sweden. And we can see here that there definitely is some kind of decline starting there. And even though there's a comeback during the fall last year, if we compare March 2025 to March 2026, the number of clicks and the CTR is definitely lower. But, and this is important, this is not the case for all of our clients. This varies a lot depending on the websites, depending on the industries, and some of our clients actually received more traffic this March than last year. So this is something that is, we see the broad patterns, but this is still something that is unique for every website, and as a website owner, you need to know what is happening to my traffic.
Yes, so we've seen that data clearly shows a shift in behavior. Instead of visiting our website here directly or via Google, users now get the answers directly in the interface. So it's not longer about driving traffic to your channels. It's about being selected as a source among thousands of others. So we asked ourselves, what do organizations need to do? We know this, user behavior has changed, technology has changed, but the way most organizations work has largely stayed the same. And that's a gap we need to close. So we looked at what we actually can do.
So what we need to do is actually to take charge of the content that is on other platforms. Those platforms are the other pieces in this ecosystem that were mentioned before. And there was a study done on which are the most cited sources or domains in LLMs a while ago. So these are the 10 top ones. And if we take a closer look at the top 4, we can see that all of these 4 are actually places where you can contribute or at least affect the information or the content about your own organization. So we're going to deep dive into these 4, and we're going to start off with Reddit. But we're going to take a bit of a broader approach, so we're going to speak about forums in general.
Yeah, and I'm trying to break down now what you can do and how it's working. So first we have forums, where questions are answered. And LLM use forums because it mirrors the way we interact with the LLM. So what you could do here is to start by find what your forum are. Try to find where your audience are asking the questions. It could be niche forums, it could be Reddit, professional communities, platforms. And answer these questions. Not as a brand or a company. Find the experts within your organization who can answer these questions in a clear and helpful way. Don't make them post links back to your website. Don't do campaigns, just contribute. And here we actually have an example from Reddit. And the question here is from a person who just bought a house, and he has some questions about electrical work. And what happens here is that we see licensed electricians start answering these questions, sharing their knowledge. And if you start to do this for your topics and do it over time, it makes your expertise visible and may be picked up by LLMs. And next we have YouTube. AI is multimodal and uses video content as well. But it doesn't look at videos the way we humans do. They use a combination of transcripts, headlines, metadata, and also comments to understand what a video actually is about. And this makes YouTube hard to ignore. YouTube has well-structured content. It's deeply integrated into search, owned by Google since 2006. And at the same time, we meet organizations that hesitate on how to use YouTube. Maybe because it doesn't fit neatly into their existing websites and platforms. Maybe because of GDPR, cookies, or when embedding videos. So our recommendation is use YouTube for reach and visibility and use another video solution for your website. I see a lot of cameras, so just taking a little longer break. And next we have LinkedIn. LinkedIn ranks well for LLM because it's prefer clear and well-structured expert content. And that's exactly what you can do on LinkedIn. And our guess here is that content from a person's profile page will perform better than content from a company page. Because it's more explicit, it's more clear, more direct, and have a clear context as well. So here our advice is the same as for forums. Let your experts speak. So instead of thinking, what should we post on our company page, think, what questions are our audience asking, and who can answer these questions the best? And then try to answer these questions and do it with a simple and direct language. Here we have an example from April Dunford. She is actually also in the tech industry. And she have done a post here about positioning in the tech market. And she structured her content in questions and answers. So how can we work with LinkedIn? Don't rely on your company page alone. Let your expert be shown through the people in the organization. And also have to click. not just speak and walk. And lastly, Wikipedia. That's a high, gets in the top when we Google. It's a trusted source. And LLM prefers Wikipedia because the information here is neutral, neutral described, and also continuously reviewed. So make sure that your content is up to date. But it's not that simple, because you just can't go into Wikipedia and edit the information by yourself if you're too deeply connected within the organization. Then your changes might be questioned, it can be removed. So here, our suggestion instead is to publish accurate information in your own channels. Make sure they are up to date, and also make sure that if you are in an article, that they have the correct information about the company. And when you've done this homework, you can suggest changes on the Wikipedia article and back it up with these sources. So the takeaway here is the more accurate your information about your company or organization or product is on the trusted sources, the more likely it's the correct information on Wikipedia. And if it's correct on Wikipedia, it's more likely that LLM will get it right. So far, we looked at these key platforms for AI to reuse content. We talked about answering questions in forums. We talked about using YouTube for reach and visibility. Share knowledge through experts on LinkedIn, and finally, update your information on Wikipedia. But that's not the whole picture here. You also have to do things on your own website to make the LLMs, to make it possible for the LLMs to actually pick up the content. But here, our clients sometimes ask us the question, if we use all these other platforms, do we really need a website of our own?
And we claim that, yeah, you still do. For one thing, you need it for validation and fact-checking. As we all know, LLMs get it wrong quite often. So people will still visit your website to make sure that the answer they got in the LLM was actually accurate. Second of all, there's a lot of talk right now about AI agents, but they're not quite here yet. But when they come, they will use your website as a source for the information that they use. For example, a shopping agent will need information about your products to pick up and actually be able to compare them with your competitors' products, so to say. And while we wait for these agents, your website will still be needed for complex tasks, like, for example, purchases, but also signing up for a newsletter or doing something that will take, like booking a meeting, that will require some kind of feedback from you as an organization. And last but not least, if you have some kind of logged-in experience, you will still need your website as the hub for that kind of interaction as well. So we looked at these other sources that you actually can affect. But now if we look at our own website that we just established that you probably will still need, you might need to do some changes in your content strategy. But as always, we don't want to make strategy changes based on hunches. We want to make decisions based on data. So first thing we need to ask ourselves is our website visible to AI at all? So what we see here is a screenshot from a tool called Visibilio, which I can recommend. No strings attached to Tieto, just a good tool that you could use to check if your website is actually visible to LLMs. Here we got an example of one of our clients that, and it's a lot of information in this screenshot, but what's really interesting here is this part. No page content. This means that the LLMs aren't able to see anything at all on this web page. And this is a web page that got a lot of content that really ranks high when it comes to SEO. No, nothing is wrong there. What is the reason for this happening is that this is a single page application, an SPA site. And if you're familiar with SPA sites, you know that they are rendered in the client's browser, in the user's browser. And LLMs are quite lazy. When they come to your website, they don't want to run those JavaScripts that actually renders the website and actually renders the HTML. They don't do that because they are lazy. They want things to go fast. So what happened is that to LLM crawlers, LLM bots, your SPA site seems like it's totally empty, that it's got no content at all. So first things first, check this. Is your website visible at all? But focus here in this session is on content and not on tech in this sort of manner. So let's skip this part and move on to other things that you need to look into. And to be able to do this content strategy, you need to get an understanding of your current state. So first of all, let's have a look at the flow from how the LLMs find information on your websites, how they visualize it in the LLM user interface, and hopefully generates clicks in the end. So most LLMs work pretty much in the same way. They send out a lot of bots, crawlers, scrapers, etc. on the internet. All over the internet, hopefully they'll find your site. Hopefully it's not empty. And from there, they extract the information they can find, and then they use that information to generate these answers. Either they will use it in this ChatGPT-looking interface, or they will use it in this Google AI overview interface. Regardless of interface, what we want as site owners is that this will generate clicks back to our website. So this is definitely simplified, but this is like the big picture, how the flow actually looks like. And within this flow, there are actually 4 touch points or 4 metrics that we need to get an understanding of to actually build this content strategy that we're talking about. First of all, we need to have a look at the crawler requests. So when these LLMs send out these bots, they will turn up in your log files, in your web server log files. This is where you can see them. And all of these have their own specialized user agent that you can identify. And by this, you can understand what LLMs are actually coming to your site, which aren't. Are there specific pages or page types that these LLMs are more interested in and than others? And how often do they come to your website? Second of all, we have the LLM visibility. To track this, you need probably some kind of third-party tool. There are quite a bunch of them out on the market today, so you'll definitely be able to find one. They pretty much work the same way as at least those I've looked into. So what you do as an organization is that you set up a number of test prompts, a number of prompts that you will let this tool actually test by sending these prompts into these different LLMs, and then you will check what kind of answers do you get. Are you cited? Do they link to you? Are you mentioned as a brand or not? And how would this expand over time? This will give you an interesting view on other LLMs that don't cite or mention you at all, and are there certain kinds of prompts that generate more visibility than others. The third one is about the search traffic. So we've already been into this, and this is more or less stats from Google Search Console that we're talking about. So most likely you will see some kind of decline in traffic. But what you need to know is, are there certain pages or page types that are more affected than others, and are there some queries that are more affected than others? To get an understanding of, is this something that is spread all over your website, or is it just isolated to some parts of it? To get an understanding of what can you improve? Is it worth actually trying to improve it? Well, that's something to look into. And last, and perhaps not least, but we want that traffic coming to our own website. But to be honest, a lot of people is not going to click those links that appear in the LLM answers. So this will not be a lot of traffic that will actually be gained this way. But nevertheless, you need to have a look at the traffic that is actually generated. So here you want to look at the traffic that you are getting from these LLMs. How is it converting? What kind of page types is visited and which are not? And is there a difference between different LLMs on how much traffic they actually generate? So when you have those stats and when you have that understanding of the current state, then you're able to actually continue with that content strategy, and that will be unique for your organization. But some broad common terms here is that your content needs to be structured, it needs to be clear and concise, and it also needs to be question and answer driven. So we're now going to deep dive in two aspects here. We're going to talk about structured data, and we're going to talk about plain language. So first off, structured data. So to understand this, if you haven't heard about this before, let's go back like 10 years. 10 years ago, roughly, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, and Yandex came together and had an initiative where they started schema.org. Schema.org is a website where they collected multiple, I think there's hundreds of them, multiple different structured data types. So what is a structured data type then? Well, it could be information about an event, a person, a movie, a product. There's hundreds of them, as I just said. And for each of these types, there are a number of properties or metadata about this specific event or person, or whatever it might be, that actually explains it in a way that is really easy to read for bots. So the purpose here is to have structured data on websites to make it easier for bots to actually interpret your content and do it in a quick and accurate way. So what you do is that you actually have this structured data code and you add it to your HTML on your website, but it's not visible for the humans, it's only visible for the bots. And as I said, this helps bots to actually quickly interpret what is in there and make it easier for them to extract that information. And it also increases the chances of your web page to actually get cited in those AI answers. And to have a bit of an example here, this is from a client of ours, Region Stockholm. They have an event page here that's called Battery Innovation Days 2026. For the humans, we see that it's quite clear what it is. It's fairly easy for us to scan. We see that there's a heading, we see that there's a description, a few bullets with crucial information like date, time, and so on, and then some more information. So for us as humans, this is quite easy to scan. But for bots, they want it even faster. And if we look at how this is structured and in a structured data way, we can see that clearly at the top there, it says type. So from the beginning, we tell the bots that, yeah, this type is an event. And then after that, we get the name of the event, we get the date and time, and that kind of crucial information. And just as an example here, we also have something called organizer. So we can see who is organizing this event. And this could actually have been a problem here, because for a bot, it might be actually a bit tricky to distinguish here who is the organizer here. Is it Region Stockholm? Well, it's their website, so it just might well be. But on the other hand, it says that the organizer is something called BEPA. But by doing it like this, it gets way clearer for the bot that this is the information that they're looking for. So the question is, why is this important at all for these bots? Well, it's a matter of speed. When you ask a question in an LLM, what they do, at least some of them, is that they do on-the-fly web searches themselves. And when they do those web searches, they need to be fast. Because you know when you ask a question in an LLM, it only takes a few seconds for the answer to pop up. So when they come to your website, they need to find that information quickly, real quickly. And this is way easier for them to interpret than this. So what is the benefit then of using this? Well, as I said, it increases the chances of actually getting picked up in AI answers. And this is also Region Stockholm. So what we did on 19th of March this year is that we deployed this structured data for event pages. And as you can see, it really took off. So from 19th of March, there's a clear lift in how often we get cited for these kind of event pages when we look in LLM answers. Okay, let's go to plain language.
Yeah, and that's me. Okay, so you got your content structured for making it possible for the bots to actually pick up your content, but you also have to look on how you write for them to actually provide that answer from your content. So what words you use do have a big difference here. It matters. So the thing here is that we want to make our content understandable. So when optimizing text, it's no longer, as Henrik told us before, about finding the right keywords. It's about writing in a way that LLMs and humans prefer. It needs to match the user questions, and the answer have to be provided in a way that we like to read the text. And studies shows, and user tests we do, shows that people in general want the language to be as simple as possible and the text to be short. And a good way to do that is to start working with plain language, klarspråk. And this means being precise and clear and explain things in a simple way. And you can start doing this by write short sentences. You can also use common words, remove jargon, abbreviations and acronyms. And also be precise. Make it clear and get to the point, especially when we think of this question and answers. Get to the point in your answer. Don't do the fluff text. So the goal here is to make the content easy to scan and easy to understand. And a format for this that works especially well, that we both have mentioned many times today, is questions and answers. And this is an example from Tieto. They have a page on their website that they have write about how to charge your electric car with a low cost. So I asked a question to ChatGPT: how can I charge my car as cheap as possible? And I got a lot of answer. And I looked in the bottom of the post, and I can see sources. So I clicked the sources, and this was what I got. I saw Tieto got in the 4th place here, and it's exactly the same page that I showed you just before. It's this page. So it referred to it directly. So if you don't do it already, start working with plain language. Review your text. Is it clear? Is it concise? Are we getting to the point? Are we using words that really need to be there, and the other words we can move away? And where it makes sense, you heard it, questions and answers is a good way. Then we already have done a lot of work for the LLMs. So what we just showed you here are some concrete examples and what can make a difference on your website. Structure the data so the content will be visible for the LLMs, and then write in a way that we actually want to use your content to provide answers.
So, to summarize, what do you actually need to do? Well, if we back it up to the beginning, we have seen that there is definitely a decrease in clicks from Google. We can see that there are a few behavior changes. But don't be alarmed, don't panic. If you've been working with SEO in the past, if you've been working with accessibility, and if you've been working with plain language, you already have a good foundation for performing well in AI search. And if you already have those things in place, then you could start looking at, well, these other platforms and make sure that you contribute with your content about your organization there as well. You can make sure that you add more structured data types to your website. And last but not least, make sure that your content is actually structured, clear, and concise. Thank you.
Thank you for listening in today. I hope you have some takeaways to bring home with you. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
You were talking about region Stockholm and showing how we see, how the world see. And can you tell a little bit more about how you helped them with their website? A little bit more examples?
Yeah. So just repeating the question here so everyone can hear it. So it's a question about elaborating on how we work with Region Stockholm and structured data. So as I mentioned, there are hundreds of these structured data types. And first thing is that you need to identify which of these structured data types is actually relevant for your website. So that's the first step. So we did that, and we identified, I would say, a bit more than a handful. I would say 6 or 7 structured data types that we see, yeah, this would actually fit into the content of regionstockholm.se. The second phase is to look into these structured data sets and have a look at these properties, all these properties that needs some kind of content to actually populate them, and make sure that we actually had the ground data in our CMS or other sources that we actually could populate this in the HTML. And then if we didn't, perhaps we need to make changes. We had to add new fields in the CMS for editors to add new information. That was, for example, a case for the event pages I just talked about. And then, and that's the third phase that we are in right now, we deployed it, and then we see, does this actually give the effect that we want? But there's a lot of research going to schema.org, scrolling through all these properties, having a look, okay, what is actually usable here? How can we make this work? Yeah, please. Well, it's hard to say exact. Oh, sorry, I should repeat the question first. How important is accessibility to AI visibility? So This is a bit hard to answer exactly how important it is, but there was an article being published on Nielsen Norman Group a few days or weeks ago.
Weeks ago, I think, yeah.
Yeah. They actually mentioned that if you have worked with accessibility, it's easier, kind of in the same way as structured data, for bots to actually interpret the content of your site using the semantic HTML to understand what is what on the website, and then faster being able to fetch that and present it as an answer.
Because you have all these small instructions visible in the code already, and they know this is an input field and this is a submit button, and all those short labels will help the users who use the hjälpmedel, and it also be good for the bots. Thank you. Yeah, we had a question here as well. Yeah.
I'm curious about internationalization, because a lot of Swedish content are not really available in English, but we have a lot of only English speakers in Sweden. And when they try to do those interactions, like Tieto, for example, how would that be handled? How can a company prepare for internationalization where their site in itself is not supporting that?
Well, I would say that...
First.
Yeah.
So how can you support your website to be more international, because you have content in Swedish and then you interact with LLM on English, for example? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first thing, it actually is, at least for ChatGPT, it's like even if you type your prompt in Swedish, when the LLM is doing these fan art queries I was talking about earlier, when they do these searches on the fly, they actually do them in English. So they have this language ability to actually do these translations also on the fly to actually make it work. So I would assume that if you asking that same question about Tibber in English, it would actually fetch the Swedish results but present them in English for you as a user. But if you want to prepare as an organization, it might be a good idea, as in ChatGPT then is doing its searches in English, to actually have an English variant of your most important content.
Structured into questions and answers. Yeah. We learned that by now.
Yeah, please.
Wouldn't also structured data help there, since that is in the properties and everything, all the types is in English? So even if you put a Swedish word into that type, it will still like read organization.
Yeah. So the question was, will structured data help us in this with multiple languages, as properties are always in English, and that helps for the LLMs to understand what the Swedish text in this example would be about? And yeah, I would say so, definitely. It helps a lot for the interpretation that the properties are named in English. I think that perhaps one last question.
What the time? 44.
44.
One last question, if we have any. In the back? Yeah, standing up.
Yeah, so that is one of these LLM visibility tools that I was mentioning before. And what we actually do here is that we have set a prompt that is basically something like, what kind of events are there in the region Stockholm area? And then we could see, so what you saw there is actually the amount of times we got cited in percentage then, when prompting that query. So we could see that the percentage lift was actually the curve there. Okay, thanks a lot for listening. If you've got any more questions, please come up to the stage and we'll take them in person.
Yeah. Thank you.